Alright, so this is our chapter 6 review. So let's start with the first problem. Says, what is the sum of the interior angle measures of a 35-gon? So this is where we wanted to use the sum formula. So here's the formula you're going to need for number 1. And we talked about how and why this worked in class. So for this particular problem, since 35 is my number of sides, I'm going to do 35 minus 2. And then times 180. So that's what I'm putting in my calculator right now. Let's see. The answer is 5,940 degrees. That's the sum of all of the interior angles of a 35-sided figure. Number 2 asks, what is the measure of one interior angle of a regular 30-gon? Again, just a reminder, we're going to be using the same formula. So this time I'm going to do 30 minus 2 because there are 30 sides times 180. So I'm going to find that number first. And you get 5,040 degrees. But that's all of the polygon. I need just one angle. And since it's a 30-sided figure, I'm going to take that total, 5,040, and divide it by 30. And that gives me that one angle is 168 degrees. Number 3 is actually the same as number 1, and in my opinion, a little bit easier. So here it just gives you the picture. It says, what is the sum of the interior angles of the figure? And I can see here that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. So I'm going to be using the same formula as a moment ago, except for 5 minus 2 times 180. I get 540 degrees. So that's the answer for number 3. All right, number 4, again, still uses find the measures of an, so that means one, interior angle. So let's do that first, of a 6-sided figure. So I'm going to do the same thing I did on number 2. So for my first answer, I'm going to do 6 minus 2 times 180. And I get 720. But if I want one angle, I would need to divide that by how many sides there are, which gives me 120 degrees. So one interior angle equals 120 degrees. So that's one of my answers. I have 2 answers on this problem. The second answer comes from, I need to find an exterior angle also. We learned this, that it doesn't matter how many sides there are, that an exterior angle sum are always 360, but again, I'm looking for one because it says an angle. So you're going to do 360 divided by how many sides there are. Again, it's always 360 for an exterior angle. And I get 60 degrees. So that's an exterior angle. So you have 2 answers on this one. One inside angle and one outside angle. Honestly, all the rest of them are just like the ones we practiced yesterday. So let's look at number 5. So for number 5, this is a kite, and I can see that because of how it's marked. They didn't have to tell me that. And I know this is very similar to the one that I worked on the board that hopefully you really got very well, like when you wrote it down. This one and this one are going to be the same. And we know that all 4 of them together have a total of 360. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 2 that they give me. So it's 74 plus 96. 74 plus 96 is 170. All right, that's the 2 that I have, and I'm going to subtract that from 360 again because it's a 4-sided figure and not a triangle. So that's 190. Now 190 is both angle W and angle U together. So I would need to divide that by 2. And that means one angle, my missing angle that I'm looking for, angle U, would be 95 degrees. So the answer to number 5 is the measure of angle U is 95 degrees. Number 6, pretty similar. This one is an isosceles trapezoid. Again, I can see that really they should have marked that this side was parallel to that side or set it in the directions. But it is an isosceles trapezoid. I can see that it's isosceles because those two sides are marked equal. And we know that the adjacent base angles, so like this one and this one, are supplementary to each other. So that means they add up to 180. So to find the measure of angle D, I'm just going to do 180 minus 60, which is 120 degrees. So the measure of angle D is 120 degrees. Number 7, super similar to another one we had yesterday. I'm being asked for the mid-segment, like how big is this segment in the middle? And we're just going to find the average of the bases. So I'm going to add 9 plus 13 and divide that by 2, which gives me 11. So the mid-segment in the middle is 11. Number 8. So number 8 has a tiny bit of algebra in it, but you guys are pretty good at solving two-step equations, so it's not so bad. So this one should tell me that it's a parallelogram, and it will on the test tomorrow, because you really shouldn't make assumptions. So I'm telling you this one's a parallelogram. In a parallelogram, again, kind of like we had a minute ago, we know the angles that are next to each other are supplementary. So that means that this angle plus this angle have to add up to 180. Now think about that. That means if this angle is 80 degrees, 180 minus 80 would be 100. This angle right here has to equal 100 degrees. But the problem is I'm asked to find the value of x and not how big that angle is. So I'm going to do a tiny bit of algebra. Again, it's just a two-step equation. 11x minus 10 equals 100 degrees. So solving two-step equations, we know we're going to add 10 to both sides. And I get 11x equals 110. I'm going to divide both sides by 11. And that gives me that the value of x is 10. So that's how we do number 8. We did one kind of similar to that one last week. Again, number 9 really should say that this is a parallelogram. And again, it will tomorrow on the test. Either that or be marked. It's neither of those things. But in a parallelogram, one of the properties that we wrote down is that the diagonals bisect each other. So notice what they're giving me here. They're giving me that KM, so that's going to be from here to here, is 23.4, but all we really need to find is the length from Y to M. So all I need to do is divide that by 2. So 23.4 divided by 2, that missing segment, or YM is 11.7. Okay, so that's that one. All right, number 10, they do not have to tell me number 10 is a rhombus because I can see that it's marked as a rhombus. All four sides are equal. And like they don't tell me that W, and don't need to tell me that W, they're not asking for W. There we go, I can get it out. But I know it's 106 because I know the two that are across from each other are equal. And since this is a rhombus, I know like this is being cut in half, right? So really what I'm looking for is how big is one of these angles right here. In this particular case, that would be the measure of angle TVW, right? TVW. So I'm looking for that angle right there. I know that the three angles in a triangle add up to 180. We use that lots of times. So 180 minus 106 is 74. Now remember, that's actually both of these put together, right? As they add up to 74, and I know it's isosceles, so if I divide 74 by 2, that's going to give me 37. So the measure of angle TVW is 37 degrees. Number 11, this is the one we're going to have to do the Pythagorean theorem. You guys knew I was going to give you one of them. Again, I know this one's a rhombus because of how it's marked. they tell me the EK is 9. And then again, they tell me from F to D, so that's the entire thing, is 22. So if they tell me the entire thing is 22, that I know, like this part is 11 and this part is 11, right? It's bisected. That was one of our properties. And another one of our properties is that the diagonals are perpendicular. So that's 90 degrees. And I'm looking for the length of DE. So this is odd right here. And so I can see that's actually the hypotenuse of my right triangle right there. So setting this up in the Pythagorean theorem, I am looking for the hypotenuse. So it would be 9 squared plus 11 squared equals c squared. I'm looking for the hypotenuse. So 9 squared plus 11 squared is 202. And I know in order to find c, I would need to take the square root of that. I will have to round on this one. I get 14.2. So that missing side is about 14.2, whatever the units are, feet, centimeters, miles. Number 11. Okay, so number 12. Number 12 is the one where your characteristic chart is probably going to come in the most handy because you're asked what is the most specific name. Like, just don't say, hey, that's a four-sided shape, that's a quadrilateral. I need exactly what it is. So first of all, I can see that it's definitely not a kite, it's not a trapezoid, and it's not a square rectangle because my angles are all not 90 degrees. I do see that this is equal to this, and this is equal to this. So it's at least a parallelogram. But also notice how all four sides are the same. And since all four sides are the same, this has to be a rhombus. So please look at your sheet. That's going to be most helpful for that one.